All right, everybody. We are back with another episode of the Next Rep podcast powered by Wodify, and we are quite pleased today to be joined by none other than Demetrious, Mighty Mouse Johnson. Thank you so much, DJ. I really appreciate you making the time being here today with us.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, man.
And also joined today with the co-host chair, my colleague here, Chris Mearswack. I had to have another MMA fighter on if we have an opportunity to talk to DJ. So, Chris, thanks so much for being here as well, man. Appreciate you making the time.
Of course, man.
So, DJ, first off, where are you, man? What are you working on? What's going on in the life of DJ right now? You traveling? You headed to any competitions? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, right now I'm home. I just got back from Montreal, Detroit, LA, San Francisco, Orange County, and Oxnard. So just went around doing content, just creating content. I have a whole bunch of projects coming up right now. Got a manga, got electrolytes, creating content for the YouTube channel. And then I'm home now for a good stint of time. We might be traveling again pretty soon to do more content. But I'm home now to be here for my kids' football. They're in full swing of it. Both of them are playing football. So I'm just all over the place right now.
It sounds like it, man. Really the main question I wanted to dive in first, DJ, was I was doing a little bit of research before the show, and I've asked this question to other folks from the MMA space, so I couldn't not get your take on it as well. But I was looking, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but your first amateur fight as an MMA fighter was back in 2006. Mm-hmm. And then your first pro fight was 2009, relatively soon after. And I was joking with Chris before the show that that's the OG era of MMA, right? Like, you got into MMA when I always joked with Chris, like the sponsors on the fight shorts were condomdepot.com and Dynamic Fasteners. And I remember it being a huge deal when you had an Xbox sponsorship. Mm-hmm. I remember like, wow, Xbox, like here we are, this sort of niche sport, the UFC, where all these like fight nerds who are a fan at this time, big deal to see Microsoft and Xbox take an interest in a fighter. And now fast forward to 2026, the UFC is on ESPN. It's on CBS. We're about to do a card at the White House. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of great in that, but does part of you miss those days when it was this niche, like nerdy kind of counterculture sport? Does part of you miss a little bit of that?
Yeah, I would say so. Like you said, I started in 2006, so there was no, 135, 145. Hell, they had 155, but they got rid of that division because it wasn't popular. All they had was 170 up to heavyweight. And then you go through this time frame where the sport is accepted, but it's not accepted. At one point, the president called it human cockfighting. And then, then it comes to sponsors. You got condoms sponsoring, the athletes where, condoms have nothing to do with mixed martial arts whatsoever. But, it was, a lot of the fighters at that time made more money from the sponsorships than they did fight. Some of those guys I heard were pulling six figures. I never forget Tyron Woodley when he fought Rory McDonald, he made $90,000 just from sponsorships. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And nobody, I don't care, nobody right now in the UFC who's fucking rocking crypto.com or Venom or whatever the fuck it is now is making $90K a sponsorship. Like, right. They're truly taking money out of the fighters' hands. Like, there's just no way to fucking cut it, right? Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the Reebok because I didn't care. I was more focused on, I wanted me and Matt focused on preparing for our fights, not focused on running around and shopping for sponsorship. So, but now, the UFC, they've been able to package it more of a legitimate sport, meaning that everybody's wearing the same uniform. Just like when you watch the NBA or NFL, everybody has their team uniform. And then they get purchased by Fox. Fox goes through there. I did a lot of the Fox cards, UFC Fox 6, UFC Fox 8, 9, et cetera, et cetera. Then it shifts to ESPN. Then that was a new era where they're on ESPN. You gotta get ESPN Plus. You have the streaming shit. That was a good era. I felt the ESPN Plus, a lot of people, now looking back on it, I know we're just now in the infancy stage of the Paramount Plus card, Paramount Plus stage. But I think the biggest thing that I can take away from ESPN is that it's the home of sports, right? NFL, NHL, basketball, you name it, it's That's the hub. When you want to watch sports, you turn on ESPN. So them being on ESPN was a good stepping stone to make it worldwide, be amongst the sports. You're on the same channel as, LeBron James, same channel as DK Metcalf, etc.
Hmm.
And then now we're this era on Paramount Plus where it's on fucking every weekend. I didn't watch last weekend. I'll probably watch this weekend. I'm dating this podcast. I'll probably watch Sean Sugar versus Fluffy. Maybe. Am I excited? Not really. It's become way more televised, meaning that now you can skip one and you don't have to worry about the next one. Right?
Right.
It's too much. Where back in the day, like you said, in 2006, it was like, holy shit, Sean Shirk is fighting BJ Penn. Oh my God, GSP's fighting this person. Or this and this. Where now it's like you have so many athletes and so many cards. And then you have Zuffa Boxing. And then you have DBX. You have Real American Freestyle. You have Bare Knuckle Fighting, you have One Championship, you have Rising, you have PFL, you have so much more. So it's almost kind of like it's doing this right now, where at one point in time you had Pride, UFC, Strikeforce, Elite XC, all these different ones, and you still have these big ones, but now they just announced today Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
That's a big play in the mixed martial arts space, but once again, it's all catered to, are they going to make a true play in mixed martial arts? Because if they are, they're going to need more athletes to be able to fill the roster, right?
Right.
Or they could just be the premium where it's like, hey, we're just doing mega fights like with Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. We might get Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. Who fucking knows? But it's a good play. So it's kind of crazy to see the ups and downs of the sport, but I miss the golden era mixed martial arts. It's not the same anymore.
And I also kind of piggyback on that, DJ. I look at some of these divisions nowadays, and again, going back to your point, when you were in flyweight, it was loaded. You go back, and the 155 has always been loaded, it seems. And then, but there was this criticism back in the day about the lighter weight classes, 125, 135. They're like, oh, the fans want to see the big guys. They want to go and they see the heavyweights or the light heavyweights slug it out. But then you look at the state of the divisions. Number one, I think that look at the success you've had on YouTube. Clearly, there wasn't really a marketability issue. So, I want to touch on that in a second. But also going over to the modern weight divisions, heavyweight, we've got a guy in the top 15 on, I think, a 6-fight losing streak. Light heavyweight used to go 10 deep, and now it's like if Poatan retires, where do things go from here? There's not that next obvious name in line. So it seems like, if anything, the lighter weight classes have really been bolstered and strengthened over the past 10 years. And maybe some of those higher weight divisions actually have petered off a little bit relative to that golden era. Do you notice that as well? Is that something that you've noticed over the years?
Yeah, I think so. I think over the years, you have, like you said, you had the niche of a sport between, I think, 2012 all the way to 2018. That's my personal opinion. I felt like it was a very niche sport. You had Vitor Belfort, Anderson Silva, myself, Uriah Faber, Joseph Benavidez, Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. Izzy Adesanya came later in 2018. Then, in middleweight, you had Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping. You had GSP. You just had like a loaded from all the divisions, 145, 155, yeah, Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Kareem Zombie, Mark Hammond. I mean, you just had the who's who. And I think, at that time, all those guys built a lot of equity. And then, one of the things that Ronda Rousey said recently, she says a lot of those fighters never pass off that equity to the next star. Right. And so if they don't pass off that equity, you never build the next star. And then, which is fine for the UFC, because in the end of the day, they don't need stars. The brand is so big. All they need to do is saying, hey, the UFC is putting on an event. People are going to tune in. They're going to watch it. And me and my producer talk about this all the time. They're not worried about the hardcore. They're not worried about the hardcore fan base, because they've already got us. They've already got you guys. Right. But
Right.
what they don't have is they don't have that everyday mama pops who, oh man, we're gonna watch this fucking weekend. Oh, there's fights on, it's free, let's watch it. Right? That's what they're going after now, and that's why it's on Paramount Plus. But so they don't need stars, right? Tom Aspinall just said it. He goes, I love mixed martial arts, but I hate the business side of it. Here's a heavyweight champion right now dealing with some eye issues, and the sport will continue on without him. The sport will continue on without John Jones. The sport will continue on without Conor McGregor. The sport doesn't need stars. It just needs people to watch the product. And that's what the UFC
Mm.
has been able to be good about. So, that's why I feel, if Alex Pereira leaves the sport, it's fine. It's still going to continue to go on, which is smart by the UFC because you never want to put all your eggs in a basket on these athletes. At one point in time, you did. You wanted to have the athletes elevate the sport. Now it's so elevated that I was at the gym now and I saw Ronda Rousey on the TV. She still has a lot of star power. It's not on the UFC, but people can go back and goes, hey, where did Ronda Rousey start? Ah, the UFC. And when
Hmm.
people see mixed martial arts, they don't see a mixed martial art, they see a UFC fighter, the everyday casual. So the UFC did an amazing job of marketing and making it big. So I'm not surprised there's not a lot of stars. They don't want stars.
And going back to the marketability thing, I was actually listening to, I know you've done interviews with him. I'm a big fan of Luke Thomas. He's one of my
Yep.
favorite journalists, MMA space. Anybody who's an MMA fan, go check out his YouTube, his podcast, all that stuff. So this was kind of something he was talking about, and not exactly, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but, back in the day, again, going back to that flyweight division, you were fighting the who's who. You were a long-standing champion, but yet there was this, oh, well, maybe we're hesitant to put Mighty Mouse as the main event for whatever reason. But yet the moment you retire, you're an enormously successful YouTuber. So clearly your personality, your brand, it works with people. Do you think it would have been different if you had access to these platforms back in the day? Or is it just social media wasn't where it is now back in the day? Or was there just not enough focus put on it from the marketing people at the time? Like, what do you think about that? Because it seems like you've been done nothing but gain traction with fans even after retiring.
Yeah, I think there's something you don't know. You had it bad until it's gone. I guess you don't know you had it good till it's gone. Whatever that lingo is. And I think the biggest thing for me, when I left UFC and went to one championship, and I got traded for Ben Askren, people were kind of in shock about that happening. And then when I went over one championship, I put on banger fights. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like I was going downhill. I was performing very well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people are like, dude, how the hell do we trade this guy who's deemed to be one of the best in the world to a organization over in Asia who valued my skill set and my morals better? And at the time, like I said, the UFC was looking to get rid of the flyweight division. They even like I was in Sacramento and they told a guy that. So with that being said, I just think that me being open and being outspoken and showing more of my charisma and my personality on the YouTube channel, I think people are enjoying a lot more. And I think YouTube just, excuse me, the social media platforms aren't where they are today. And
Mm-hmm.
once again, I think, when you look at the flyweight division now, it's a great division. You have Joshua Van, you have Pantoja, you have Kyojo Horiguchi, who's back now. You have Manel Cobb, you have Brandon Royval, you have Brandon Moreno. It's still a great division. But when I look back at my division, when it was my time, you had more personalities, meaning, Kyojo Horiguchi was in my division when I was there. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that, right?
Yeah.
You had Joseph Benavidez, you had John Dotson, you had Ali Bagatino, you had Henry Cejudo, you had Chris Carriazo, you had, a good group of guys that had great personality, that had great equity at that time. You look at Joseph Benavidez, he fought at 135. Ian McCall was very a great personality. So I just think, even when you look at the what's what division, I still miss GSP. When I look at and I also think another thing too is back in the day, we fought way more. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you haven't seen when's the last time you seen Hamzat fight? It's like these guys, they win a belt and they go on hiatus, which is fine. It makes sense. You look at Paddy Pillman, he goes on a fight and he takes a year off, which is good. But I think to be more active in a limelight is very important. That's one thing that we did in that era of mixed martial arts. Like I was fighting 3 times a year and I was a champion.
In going to that era when you were champion, I mean, for so long, I mean, I would have to imagine, or it's either you or John are the longest reigning UFC champions in history, right? Like it's you two guys at the top of that list.
Yep.
Was there like an operating system shift that you had to go through once you were the champion to kind of maintain the dominance in the division that was a little different than your approach when you were just an up and coming prospect trying to get that belt for the first time?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest shift that happened was just adding more rounds, to be
Mm.
honest with you. Like we always train hard. As time went on, we would understand my body and how I would change and develop as a man, I guess you can say, because I started in, like I said, 2006. I was 18, 19 years old. You know, when you do it for 10 years, you're 28, and then you don't recover the same. So, but honestly, the biggest shift was just changing the sparring to 3 rounds to 5 rounds, then going back to 3 rounds, then going back to 5 rounds. That was the biggest shift. And then as far as saying dominant, even if I were to lose at any given point in those fights, or even when I did win, we would always focus on how can we get better. It was just a mindset of a martial artist that we constantly kept on doing. So regardless of how I became a champion or not, like let's say I win two, lose two, win three, lose one, win two, we would always constantly have the same mindset, which is to keep on getting better.
In regarding the mindset, I really enjoy your breakdowns on YouTube. Like I was just watching the other day, you were breaking down the recent pay per view. I can't recall the exact breakdown,
I think
but
it was Justin Gaethje, Patty Pimlet.
there you go. And you were talking about you had your illustrator, the telestrator out, John Madden style. You know,
Yep.
you're right there, circling stuff, Xing stuff out. And I think from a mindset perspective, I've never fought, so far be it from me to say, but talking to Chris about this before the show, like there are certain guys who need to go to a different place before you fight, I would imagine. It's not just like your natural temperament. Some guys maybe go to a dark place that's like rage and anger and hatred and all this stuff. You kind of always struck me as a guy who is just so damn interested in this. You're like, man, I'm so fascinated to see how my game plan is going to match up against this game plan and to see who comes out better. Like you were truly, was that the fuel for you a little more so than just like the anger and the resentment type of stuff? Like you were just, damn, I love this stuff and I can't wait to see what happens in there.
I would say so. Like, as one of my coaches said one time at training camp, I can't remember where I was at in my career, but he was like, "You're not a fighter. You're an athlete. Like, you're an athlete." Like, he points to another guy. He goes, "That guy loves to fight. Like, you can give two shits about fighting." And I was like, "Yeah, you're pretty much right. Like, it's my job and how I make my money." And that's why I think it made me so successful is that I would show up to the gym. I would figure out what we need to get done. I'll get it done. Then I would go home and do this thing that I need to do, prepare for the next day. And when it came to actually fighting people, I would let my coach Matt dictate like what we need to do in the very beginning. And until end of my career, he would allow me to have feedback like, "Hey, what do you think?" And I was like, "Man, I think X, Y, and Z." Then that's when my game went to another, giving the athlete a chance to actually partake in the structuring of how the fight's gonna go on. Because at the end of the day, it's me fighting. And I think, I didn't really talk about that to a lot of people. Now it just comes up. I think that also elevated my game, where Matt allowed me, he goes, "Hey, what do you think?" Like, I need to know what you think so I can answer your questions and then we can navigate it. So yeah, I would think I was more intrigued by the IQ side of fighting, not, can I hurt this person or I get pissed, da 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 da. I would enter flow state, which allowed me to do amazing things. But at the end of the day, I was more intrigued by intelligence. So that's why now I feel like when I do the YouTube channel, it's a lot easier for me to talk. And I don't always get it right, right? Like I look at something and this is how my mindset sees it, right? Doesn't mean it's always going to be right. For example, I was just in San Francisco with Justin Gaethje, and I'm like, "Why do you always circle to my power? Like, why do you do that?" And this is me. I watch him. I'm like, "Okay, he's no circle on my power," which he did against Patty Pimlet. I would have kicked his leg. I would have threw the right hand. I would have showed the jab through a high kick, the same side because he ducks and he's looking for that. He's looking for that left hand. That's why he has so many eye pokes when he fights. Not all the time, but he does. So he does that, and he goes, "Well, one, Patty Pillman kicks like a bitch. Two, I want to fight. I want to fight you like I fought Patty Pillman because you actually have good footwork. You actually know what you're doing, but Patty Pillman doesn't, right? And so for me, I had to take a step back, think about it. I was like, okay, so the way Justin Gaethje fought Patty Pillman was designed to cater more to Patty Pillman. He's not going to fight me the same way, right? So I'm basically breaking down like, hey, right there, boom, he's circling to the power, big negative. You can go over the top, you can slip, and you can do things. But once again, he's structuring his training around Patty Pillman. So, but that aspect of fighting, I think a lot of people didn't get that part of me because I was never vocal about how I went about navigating getting ready for fights. And I think people are more intrigued by that. The Armor Surukin video I just did, people saw my clinch game, and a lot of people think like my game is all about clinch. It's all about the clinch game, but it's not. I can box, I can do kickboxing, I can do all that stuff. But everybody's used to that. That's the thing people don't understand. Everybody's used to fucking 1, 2, oh, 2, 3, 2. Nobody's used to like I'm getting on you, I'm getting on you, I'm on you. But then once they adapt to that, then I go to the next step. I go to the next step. So, but that's I just think why people and why I'm so successful now is because I'm given a glimpse of some of the learnings or the stuff I've been taught for the last 25 years, essentially.
When people think about your career, I think the thing you also hear is, oh, DJ was a black belt in everything. And especially that's something you hear about the lighter weight classes too. Like you guys, like the heavyweights, God bless them. But a lot of times skill isn't necessarily on display all the time. It's just size, power, athleticism, mass, force equals mass times acceleration, right? Whereas for you guys, you had to be covered everywhere, regardless of whether it was a grappling affair, whether it was a striking match, you guys had to be covered. And obviously you're sort of like the poster boy of that. Like you dominated that division. That was the most technical. So it kind of leads into a question. What about coaching? Is that something you see in your future?
Fuck no. Fuck no. Why would I fucking coach? One, let me break it down. Okay, coaching, there's no money in it. Okay. Two, you gotta love it. I don't love coaching more than my children and my wife and my free time. I get to wake up, do what the fuck I want, whenever I want, however I want. And if I was a coach, I'll be giving all that shit away. So that'll be a hell no. And three, it takes a special person to be able to move a certain way. Now, do I like helping people, like dropping in on like somebody's training camp and vibing out and giving them, small nuggets? Yeah, I can do that. But like coaching is a whole nother game where it takes a special person. And I know I'm not that person. I rather, I spent the last, like I said, 20, 25 years preparing my body, getting my mind right. And now, I'm being able to express the way my knowledge is through my children, through my writing, through my businesses. And that's way more rewarding than trying to get somebody to a level where they might not be able to have the athletic ability, the mindset, the mentality, the physicality to get where I was. So that's why I say, fuck no. I'm never going to coach anybody. Like I'll help, but to be like, hey, I'm going to open a gym. Welcome to the mighty university, XYZ. Fuck that. That sounds horrible. Absolutely horrible.
It's funny, like jumping in now. Corey and I were talking the other week about the difference between fighters, what it takes to get you to the top there, and then not necessarily that skill set, not necessarily translating to coaching or teaching. They're just all completely different skill sets that may develop at different rates for different people.
Yeah, and I think Craig Jones said it the best. He goes, just because somebody's a great fighter doesn't mean they're going to be a great coach. Right? Like you see all these guys who are doing IBJJF and they're winning all these titles, and then they open a gym and then other teams have titles, and it's like, it's the same with fighters, Could Alex Volkanovski be a great coach? Yeah, he probably could. But he sacrificed time with his wife, his kids. It's just something that I just don't, it doesn't sound, it's not calling my name. It's not like pulling me, where I think people who do become coaches, it's calling them. Like you look at Henry Huth, an amazing coach. You look at Greg Jackson, an amazing coach. You look at these coaches out there, who've been able to transfer over. Habib Nurmagomedov, a great coach. But for me, I feel that I get more fulfillment out of being with my kids, helping them with their football, guiding them. It's their turn to be able to shine. Why would I give away my time and equity and love, passion, all that stuff to a stranger instead of my kids? And that's just me as a person, where I have to be grateful, because if Matt Hume didn't have that love for martial arts and the love for giving back to athletes, then I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? But I know Matt made a lot of fucking money with me. So it kind of went hand in hand, where I don't think I could train an athlete to be able to produce the amount of money I made to make it all worth it. That makes sense.
It does. And DJ, I'm curious, you mentioned coaching. One of the elephants in the room with coaching, as you said, it's not very lucrative right now. It just isn't. And, we work for a tech company here at Wodify that we actually kind of power a lot of mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu gyms. And it's funny when we go to these client visits, I won't name any names, keep them confidential, but we hear from a lot of big name gym owners that say, maybe they even came from an MMA background originally, but we ask them, oh, you teach jiu-jitsu, do you do an MMA program? And they're like, nope. And then basically they kind of say what you just said. They're just like, not any money in it. I travel all over the place. Is that holding the sport back a little bit, do you think? Like just the inability for it to really, you see a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms, you see less kickboxing gyms, but you see them. You don't see a lot of proper MMA gyms out there, the commercial, right? Maybe the big camps spread throughout the country, but is that holding the sport back? Is that why we're seeing a little bit of a talent drain right now?
Well, I don't think it's the gym. I think it's the sport itself, because you look at the money's shit, right? Let's start there, because if the money's shit, then why would someone want to go into the gym and learn how to fight to make shit money? Doesn't make sense. And the reason why gyms are more successful with, your jiu-jitsu or your kickboxing, if you have kickboxing era, or boxing gyms, even boxing isn't really doing as well as jiu-jitsu. Reason why is because, let's look at jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is for children, older gentlemen, teenagers, women. You can compete from 30 all the way to your 75 years old. You look at Megatron, he's still fucking competing. So that's what jiu-jitsu has going for it. And there's always going to be a revolving door with children coming into jiu-jitsu, right? And even jiu-jitsu is trying to get to a point now where it's funny. I saw something the other day is that jiu-jitsu is getting to a point now where it's not as enjoyable. What is becoming more enjoyable, as from what I heard, is real American freestyle, because it's like you have two guys locking horns and fucking throwing people and trying to manhandle and hold them down, where jiu-jitsu is becoming a leg lock fest, where it's like, you just saw Mikey Misimichi, and I love Mikey. He just, got a leg up. It's very, very dangerous. It's very, he can blow homeboys ACL, MCL, LCL, everything. But the public doesn't. At one point, I didn't understand it, why the public didn't really get into jiu-jitsu. But now I understand it, because it's like, it's not as appealing, because I have to study it. I have to understand what's going on in that sport. But when you look at, the other things that are going around, it's more appealing. But getting back to the context of it, is that there's just no money in fighting in order for your everyday mama pops. I'm not putting my kids in fucking fighting. Like, I'm not doing it. It's not worth it. I'd rather him play football, even though for him to make it to the NFL is super, super, super hard. But I love what football is doing for him right now. I would not push my kids to pursue mixed martial arts whatsoever. Just because it's not, the money's not where it's going to be, and I don't think it would ever get to the point where it needs to be, because they don't have to, because they can always have somebody fight for cheaper.
Do you think that it's really even possible right now for another? Like, obviously you fought in one. I love the ONE FC product. Mixing it up, and you might have a Muay Thai match followed by a kickboxing match, by a grappling match followed by MMA. Like, I love it. I think it's a great product. Do you think there's a world where there can be competition, or let me phrase it a different way? It's probably not possible to compete in MMA. The UFC just dominates everything.
Yeah.
But might there be a competitor that looks a little more like ONE, that mixes it up a little bit? Or are there just going to be so many of these like sub promotions, these B-level promotions, that they just kind of end up diluting the sport, and maybe that's what changes things long term? I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, is there a solution to this problem?
I don't think so, and the reason why is because I think ONE Championship and UFC are two different products. It truly is. When you look and you pull back the onion, you look at ONE Championship, they're the home of they're the home of martial arts, not mixed martial arts. And you look at their card, they have Muay Thai, they have kickboxing, they have submission grappling, and they have MMA. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're feeding so many different niches of people who enjoy combat that it's its own entity. Where you look at the UFC, they're focused on mixed martial arts. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else, which that's fine too. And what's made them successful is that, they were able to utilize building their brand so fucking big that then you do cross promotion with the WWE, and then you have, Michael Chandler at WWE, then you have Jey Uso and Dwayne Johnson, you have TKO behind you. It just magnifies the brand, right? Like when you have guys in other sports like Dwight Howard, or who just wanted to, or Sam Darnold talking about, like, or Drake May talking about, all my favorite fighters, Sean O'Malley.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize how big that is. That's massive, right? That's massive, because if I'm watching Pat McAfee and I'm watching football, and next thing you know, Drake May's on there. Drake May's like, man, I love Sean O'Malley, the way he moves, the way he looks, all that stuff. And then people were watching and goes, man, who's Sean O'Malley? Go on Google, Sean O'Malley. Oh, he's a UFC bantamweight contender. Oh, what's UFC? Boom, they just hooked another person, where that's how it works over here in America. Now, One Championship, they're more predominant in Asia, where they have more of their fights based in Thailand and Singapore and Japan and all that stuff, and they're catering more to the Asian side. And the way I like to think of it is like, it's like NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
I give two fucks about NASCAR and Formula One. It's an amazing sport. I'm not hating on it, but I'm not gonna sit down on a Saturday morning and watch NASCAR or F1, because I have no attachment. It's not something that's big here in America. I'm not attached to it. You drive fast cars, that's dope. I've been to F1. It's a great event, but I'm not attached to that. So that's one thing that is, if an organization was going to come and make a play in mixed martial arts, one, you got to attack. When I mean attack, you have to grab homegrown talent that you want to thrive in. So if you want to thrive in America, you need American talent. You look at RAF. Why are they thriving? Because they got guys like Henry Cejudo, a lot of equity. Uriah Faber, a lot of equity. Bo Nickel, a lot of equity. Yo Romero. You have Armin Sarukian, a lot of guys. They're basically doing the same thing the UFC did and repackaging it into wrestling, where
Mm-hmm.
nobody's getting injured. They keep on doing. They got a broadcasting deal on Fox Sports. So that's where I just think, you look at DBX. They're trying to do the same thing. They need more equity. The last event they did, and have a very big star in it, but it still did good because people are looking for a different thing to watch besides mixed martial arts. So you have mixed martial arts, you have One Championship, it has everything. You have DBX, you have bare knuckle fighting, you have all these things under this umbrella of combat, where you can pick and choose which you want. But for one person to try to dominate mixed martial arts, I think until the end of time, it will always be the UFC. Like PFL, who knows when they're having fights, right? So that's why it was
Mm-hmm.
smart for Bellator to get the fuck out of town and sell all their assets to PFL, where we'll see how long PFL lasts.
Do you think that if you were a prospect coming up in 2026 as opposed to '06, would MMA still have been where DJ goes, or do you think you would have been transfixed by CJI or
Oh, God,
Karate
no.
Chop? You still think
No.
you would end up doing MMA?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I forgot about Karate Combat. Karate Combat's a niche. CGI is a niche. And yeah, it all depends on, like, what was my childhood like and all that stuff, and what was inspiring. What inspired me, and I think what inspired me was mixed martial arts. So just because it's 2026, I think it'll be a harder time to get in the UFC. Meaning that I have a buddy, Bilal Hassan. He's undefeated. He hasn't got the call yet for the UFC, because the word on the street is that they're not looking for new flyweights. They just
Mm-hmm.
want 15 ninjas. 15, 18 ninjas, and that's fucking it. And if you ain't one of those 18 or 20 ninjas, you ain't. And think about that. There's another kid in fucking Canada I just met, Montreal, Tommy Morrison. He's undefeated. He's like 8-0, no finishes. Never got the call to UFC. There's another guy, Damien, who's in Texas with B Team.
Yep.
Very good. Hasn't got the call yet, right? So I feel now it's way more overpopulated, that you have to stand out above the rest in order to get that call. Well, back in 2006, it was still fresh. I was one of the best, great highlights, and I got the call.
DJ, I'd love to chat with you too before we close here about jujitsu
Mm-hmm.
and about really going deep on jujitsu after you retired from MMA. Was that something you always knew you were going to do? Was that something you were looking forward to in post MMA world, or is that something you kind of fell in love with after you retired?
It was something I fell in love with after I retired. Like, after I retired, or in the process of me retiring, my son was in, somebody told me, your son's interests become your interests. right? So my son was into dirt biking. I got into dirt biking. He had a 50cc Husqvarna. Then he had a 65 gas. I had a 250 FC Husqvarna. I've had a 150 Honda. Like it became a lifestyle. I bought a truck, bought a fucking trailer. I mean, we were full blown into it. But then I was like, there's no fucking money in this, and you're gonna get fucked up. And so, really, I was looking for something to scratch my competitive edge. And then eventually, in my area where I live, there's not a lot of good gyms, I feel like, at the time. The gym I trained mixed martial arts at was an hour and 15 minutes away. And I was like, I'm not doing a 2.5 hour commute in order to just feed this itch. So I found jiu-jitsu, and I found an amazing professor. He still is my professor, Professor Jan, and my old coach and my friend Skids was like, you should come out here and train. He's really good. And I started training there, fell in love with it, and just it opened my eyes. And this was like kind of like when I fought Adriano. After I got knocked out by Adriano, that's when I started doing jiu-jitsu, because at the time I wasn't doing any type of jiu-jitsu during training camp because it's so far away. But I fell in love with it, and I can realize I can compete against guys who are my age. So then that's when I started competing. I did very well at brown belt. Then once I moved to the black belt level, it got a little more difficult given the fact that I only trained 2 days a week. And a lot of people don't realize that when you go to the black belt masters division, you're going against people who've been a black belt since they're 18 years old. And they competed all the way up to the 35. And that's a lot of time on the mat. And so after my last competition, I went against a guy I beat last year. And, there's a point system. He was doing a great job. And then I got trapped in a leg lock, and I heard my knee pop twice. And I was like, fuck, man. I tapped. I was like, there's $0 in this, right? Like for me, it's trying to see what you can do. But at the same time, if I were to blow my knee out and not be able to run and play football with my kids, I'll be very devastated, right? I could just be absolutely devastated. And so for me, that's where I was like, you know what? I'm done with jiu-jitsu right now. I'm done competing, because I'm not going to, it's like me going into a knife fight where I don't practice knife fighting for 5 days, 6 days a week, where another guy is practicing knife fighting 6 days a week. Like those guys live, breathe, eat jiu-jitsu, where I'm like, I'm retired. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to train an hour and a half, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to play football. Right. So it just wasn't realistic. And then I've been able to find other things that I can be creative in and put my energy into instead of going to these tournaments. So, but I love jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu will always be a big place in my heart and my transition out of mixed martial arts. And who knows, I might compete later in life. But for me, I find more fulfillment of being athletic and being strong than being able to be a good jiu-jitsu player where I'm at. Where I'm about to be 40 years old, right? Like, I'm gonna run around and boom, boom, and catch a ball. Then like, oh, here's lasso, and I just flipped you. Like, that's just way more appealing to me right now where I'm at in my life.
I feel like athleticism is such a huge part of the Mighty Mouse experience, right? I mean, if folks ever doubt athleticism, check out your post-fight celebrations. They're probably the most athletic things I've ever seen in an octagon. It's also kind of funny, by the way, quick aside, to hear that you weren't training jiu-jitsu that much, coming from the guy who literally has the most famous submission probably in MMA history. That's hilarious. At least at the time.
My favorite of all time.
Yeah, it's the best. You can't beat it. Don't think it'll ever be beat, and I'm not even just blowing smoke. I mean, how could you beat it? How could you possibly do better than that?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. When I was in the middle of my prime of my career, I was training 5 to 6 days a week, twice a day, right?
Yeah.
I know what it takes to be elite. I know what it takes to be a world champion. Do I want to make that same sacrifice to be world champion in jiu-jitsu? The answer is no. When I was training 5 to 6 days a week to become a world champion, when one of my foot touched that fucking canvas in the octagon, I was getting a check for $380,000, right? Plus $40,000 for the sponsorship. I'm making $400K when my foot touched that canvas.
Yep.
You know how much money I make when I touch that canvas in jiu-jitsu?
$0 and 0 cents.
Zilch. Zero. Nothing. So why would I commit all this time that I did in mixed martial art? It just doesn't make... And don't get me wrong. It's not always about the money. It's not always about X, Y, and Z. But sometimes you got to take a step back. You got to swallow your ego. You got to look at the bigger picture. And it's like, if I can take, now as I look at it, if I can take that same amount of time that I do in jiu-jitsu twice a week, hour and a half, so that's 3 hours. I love open mat because I like to fight people. So 3 hours a week. And I put that in working my hips, working my balance, working my explosion, working my footwork, working all that stuff. I think in the long run, I'm going to be a much happier and better athlete than trying to compete at these local tournaments where I'm going to get zilch. And so that's where my mindset has changed. Like, I love jiu-jitsu. I think all the athletes should make way more fucking money, but I'd rather focus on other things where I'm going to be able to be happy and see a way bigger payout. Like, there's no other bigger accomplishment that I can make in combat sports than I've already done in mixed martial arts. Right? Like, it's so, yeah.
Well, on that point, we're kind of in the era with jiu-jitsu. There's almost like a little bit of a pro wrestling vibe to it, where we have these super fights and we have these like one-off events. I mean, we're not looking to break any news here on the Wadify podcast, but I'm curious, in general, your phone rings, you get a super fight offer for jiu-jitsu. Would you entertain something like that?
Nope. I already had that before. I just don't. I've had offers to do real American freestyle. I've had offers to do things. I just don't care to do them because I know the amount of sacrifice it takes for me to get ready. I'm not willing to make that sacrifice and take that away from my kids and wife. I just don't. There's no, I say this, and this is only because I would only compete. It has to be life-changing money. Like, change my life, not just my life, my coach's life, my teammates' life. It's got to change everybody's life around me. My life is great. I'm healthy. My wife's healthy. My kids are healthy. I'm not struggling. I'm doing very well. My coach ain't struggling. My teammates aren't struggling. They all got jobs, financial advisor. Everybody's doing well. So for me to get into a combat situation where I need to pull my coach, my teammate, him away from their families and have them make their sacrifices again in order for me to go do a competition, it has to change everybody's life. It doesn't make sense. Now, for some people, they might be struggling. They might need money. They might want to catch that glory. But for me, I'm not playing checkers. I'm playing chess, where after I'm done with my time on this earth, they're like, wow, he was one of the greatest athletes that's ever done mixed martial arts, but he was also the most intelligent businessman and entrepreneur and the stuff that he's done. That's where I'm playing. That's where I'm going. And so for me, that seems way more badass than, oh, he won an American freestyle wrestling. I just don't give a fuck about that stuff. Like, I love covering it, but for me, I'm looking for the bigger picture.
And last thing here, DJ, before we get you out of here, is regarding that next step, that bigger picture. Has that same fire been burning for the content production? Is that the thing that's really like, man, this is lighting me up in a different way, it's scratching a different itch? Because to your point, there's not a lot of combat itches left to scratch for you. They've all been scratched. You've achieved a great deal there. Is the next thing really building that brand up, the Mighty YouTube channel? I mean, like I said, I tune into you every day after the fights. I'm always looking to see the breakdowns, and they're super high quality. I recommend anybody who's a fight fan could benefit from watching them. You learn a lot about the sport from DJ's breakdowns. But is that the next thing that really is getting you out of bed in the morning, that's really exciting you project-wise?
Yeah, I mean, so my manga, I wrote 54 chapters. So I did all that, and I stopped because that's a very big part of the story. And then last night, I didn't sleep well, but I was dreaming the whole entire time because we're at a process right now in the manga where it's about to get green light and all that stuff. But I just literally did the whole roadmap to finish the whole story, and it's like, and then I have the electrolytes coming out, and then I'm still with the YouTube channel. We're always thinking about type of content can we create? I have seminars coming up, so I'm trying to dial in my curriculum. I want to teach people. I teach my curriculum based off things I'm seeing in mixed martial arts and where people are lacking. I think one of the biggest things that are lacking in mixed martial arts today is the IQ of footwork, understanding, footwork. Where can you be? Are you safe? Are you not safe here? Okay, if he does this, you need to be better off. You should choose this. So I'm structuring my curriculum, just those things right there. Then I have my beautiful wife, I have my beautiful children. All those things right there are more enough to fulfill my cup. And then I have my health, I have my me staying strong, healthy, relaxed, and strong. All that is way more enough to get me excited to get out of bed because, you know, if I'm able, we're in a process where there's been a couple people who've read the manga and they're like, this is fucking amazing. I sent it to Hawani. Hawani goes, you wrote this? He goes, and I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, this is why you don't need to fight. You don't care to fucking fight. He was like, look at this. He goes, this is fucking amazing. And I was like, you think so? He goes, yes. And he goes, you don't need to fight, right? So, and these are things that people don't really know about. I didn't know about some of myself, but I've always had a very imaginative mind. When I do that, boom, and I do all that, it's this fucking mind up here that I'm able to translate it into writing where I think a lot of people are going to love it. So it's like, yeah, that, me being successful in that will blow everything out of the water. Me fighting on Netflix. Imagine if I produce this manga and it's on fucking Netflix and it's like written by Demetrious Johnson, 15-time world mixed martial arts champion. IBJ, come on now. But guys, what are we even fucking talking about right now? Right? Like that drives me so. And besides that, to tell a cool story and be able to do cool fucking shit drives me. But that's what gets me out of bed. That's what drives me. It's like, can I be successful? I've already been successful on YouTube. I've already been successful in podcasting. I think at one point in time, we're the ranked number 4 in Spotify in sports. And it's a team of 3 people. We don't have big production. It's just us, right? So that's my next goal is like, and I have the electrolytes as well, which is amazing. We're going to be launching in Q2. We're going to be in Sprouts. That was a fun process. It's been like literally a year and a half of formulation, trying to get the taste right. And, and the hardest thing when you do that is like, we all have different taste buds. We all taste something different. How do you dial it down to everybody's going to love it? Right. And there's no bullshit in it. There's no like, oh, it's going to taste this good because X, Y. It has to be all natural because I'm a naturopathic guy. All that stuff is way more fulfilling for me, and I keep saying it, than trying to get ready for another fight. Like, I can do all this stuff with my daughter right next to me, Tyron, Maverick, my wife right there, where they can be part of it. That's just way more exciting than fighting.
DJ, would you use the word kind of like expression there? Because it's like there's so much, there's a range of your personality. There's different parts of you, right? And like some of it has been expressed, like the warrior, the athlete. That's been expressed. That's been externalized. But writing, creativity, or even YouTube, I could see how a manga would be so different because it's from you. Like, you're not really trying to please anybody. This is something you created. With YouTube, you kind of got to cater a little bit to the algorithm. And maybe this isn't the title you would choose, but you got to choose it because it's what the algorithm wants. Where the manga, this is you. There's no obstruction. There's no middleman. This is like, this is a new part of you that people get to learn and experience and that you get to express. So is it fair to say that's kind of where you're at in life, is you're just focused on expression at this time?
Yeah, I think so. I think you get to a point in your life where I've always been surrounded by people who've been very, very ultra wealthy, successful than I have been. I mean, just ultra wealthy, where it's like, why do you even do that? And he goes, well, when you get to a point in life, money does not seem to be, it's not a necessity. It becomes a tool to be able to give you the option to do whatever you want to do. And I feel when you're doing the YouTube stuff, I love the YouTube. That's why there's a yin and a yang. I am the yin, and my producer and those guys, they're the yang. For me, I love shooting the content. We just shot content with GSP. Absolutely amazing content. It was great, great content. I love producing it. Now it's up to them. Okay, this is the title we're going to do. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Okay, when you get sponsors, for me, I just love shooting the content. Like, you look at the Gilbert Melendez podcast, great podcast. If you're an OG fan and you love you know, the scrap pack and how he started fighting and Nick Diaz and the whole story of him, and they're gonna love that. But there's also a fan base out there where they don't care about it, right? So do I not do YouTube content just because I'm always searching for that next view? Then I wouldn't enjoy doing YouTube because you're always searching for somebody's validation. You're always searching for X, Y, and Z. But you do need to put out those bangers. You know, like I said, the Armor Streaking. But that's something I've always wanted to do. The GSP, that's something I always want to do. I want to do Anderson Silva. I want to do Alex Volkanovski. I want to do all these guys. But that takes time. That takes planning. That takes financial stuff. That takes time away from the family and the kids. So, but like I said, there's got to be that yin and yang where the team is like, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this. Like, here's another example. But you also got to put your foot down and say no. You know, Wing C just fought in Karate Combat. And they're like, we're bringing that fight down. I was like, no, we're not. It's like, it wasn't a good fight. Nothing happened. You had two guys running on a fucking wall, jumping after each other. And then you had one guy who was not even good. It's like, and my wife is like, you know, why do we, if it was a good fight, it was back and forth and all that stuff, then yes, I would have probably done it, but I didn't feel it was worthy. So you got to have that pushback. I was like, I'm not passionate enough to break down that fight, even though I know it's going to do great views. I know it's going to do amazing views, but do we need those views right now? I don't think we do. So there's got to be that yin and yang where you have to be happy, and we're, in the manga, there's a little bit of that too. You can't just write a story and think everybody's going to love it. So I do need validation, because when you start getting, you know, teams together and you start pulling money together, you want it to be successful. But I feel how passionate I am about the project and about the story and how I tell it and how I'm able to express my mindset. And I told my agent, I was like, every fight in this book was choreographed by me. I choreographed every single of the fucking fight scene. I actually fought for 25 years. You can't, anybody else, JJK, none of those guys have ever fucking fought. Dragon Ball Z, Akira Toriyama, he's never fought. And that's no play on those guys. Those guys are amazing writers. Amazing. I love those stories. But that's one thing I have over them, is that I've actually fought before. I've actually been the best in the world before, right? So that's where I take that same energy and that same mindset into my fucking writing. All I see is success, and I'm going to have failures, right? I have an editor going through it right now who's not from the world of manga, who's from the world of Hollywood, where he's acting in HBO's Euphoria. He's been on Gemstone Dynasties. He lives and breathes in Hollywood. He's reading right now and he's editing, you know, going through like, okay, well, you said this, how does that make sense? Da, 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 da. So I'm going through the right steps to make it successful. You look at Harry Potter. She got turned down how many times with different publishers, but she believed in her product. And it's one of the greatest stories ever told. And it's one of my favorite stories. And I can't wait till my fucking kids watch it. So yeah, man, I get to express myself in this way. And this is why I'm way more passionate about this than mixed martial arts right now, because mixed martial arts is like this, where this is my own baby. I get to create it. I get to navigate it. I get to steer it. And I've been enjoying every fucking bit of it.
Well, I love that, man. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. So I already follow you, so I'm sure I'll get the details as they come on. But Jay, thank you so much, man. This is an honor for me. You know, I grew up watching you compete. I remember the early days of the UFC when you first won the belt, and just a pleasure to talk to you, man. Thank you so much for making the time. I know I speak for Chris and Wadify in general, saying we really appreciate your time today. It really means the world, and wish you nothing but success with the upcoming projects. I know people already know how to find you. You're an easy guy to find. But is there any particular place you're sending people nowadays to say, hey, if you want to keep, is it the YouTube channel?
Yep, YouTube channel and Instagram. Instagram is Mighty, and the YouTube channel is Mighty Gaming. Just click subscribe, and we always dropping stuff there in the community. We have a lot of major projects coming out. The Instagram, we have all of our stuff coming out there as well. And then once we announce the manga's name, we already got the Instagram for that as well. We'll drop that too. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always good chat to talk, to not be the one doing the interview, but being the one being interviewed.
Hell yeah. I think the last thing I'll say, DJ, I think that's all these people who want to be podcasters. I think what they really want to do is be a guest on a podcast. You know what I mean? Right? That's the fun stuff. That's the fun stuff.
So, sometimes it is, but sometimes, like, you know, I spend so much time talking that you don't want to talk. I don't want to talk, it's like if I do spend the energy to talk, I want to spend my wife and kids. So you got to go to a special, because you think about it, I have a podcast. What's today? It's Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, I have a podcast. Sunday, I have a podcast. And I love talking to these guys. So, but if I did Thursday and Sunday, then I just did this podcast today. So you got to think it's a lot, and then you get the breakdowns. It's a lot of energy that goes out where, so, but yeah.
Well, you're good at it. So selfishly, we hope you never run out of energy for that. But DJ,
thanks.
Thank you so much, man. And for any coaches or gym owners listening to the podcast, obviously the technique stuff that DJ puts out is top notch. Who better to learn from than one of the best to ever do it? So thanks again, DJ. Hope you have a great rest of your week, my friend.
Oh, thank you guys.
Take care, man.
Mm-hmm.